that takes us to panel number 2. It seems all my favorite people are in the room today. Our next moderator for panel 2 is the CEO of Startup Bangladesh, Mr. Sami Ahmed, who is our lighthouse in the venture capital ecosystem in Bangladesh. Welcome, Sami. The panel is going to, because we've heard about impact instruments and outcome-based finance from Laura. Now we are going to go in the panel and talk about impact investment instruments in a broader way. And with Laura, the panelists for this panel are Mr. Shardar M. Asaduzaman. If I may ask you to please come to the dais. Mr. Asaduzaman is the Assistant Resident Representative of UNDP Bangladesh. We also have Mr. Anisur Rahman, Senior Director, Enterprise of BRAC. Mr. Rahman. Thank you. We have Ms. Sharawat Islam. As I keep on saying, my favorite lady. Managing Director, True Value Bangladesh. We've all met Ms. Laura Brouwer, Manager of Social Finance, Netherlands. And finally, Ms. Kerry Breen, Senior Director, Brummer & Partners. Over to you.
Thank you. Can you hear me? It's working fine? Yeah. So, good morning, everybody. A fantastic panel. I'm also very excited to talk about these impact instruments. I know Laurie didn't get a chance to talk much about it, which makes it much easier for me to moderate because now we can talk a little bit more and hear from you about it, right? So we'll have a discussion around impact instruments, but we'll have an outcome. We'll have it, keep it informal and talk about the different instruments out there, as I believe that Bangladesh has been a pioneer of one of those instruments, microfinance, right? And I think that's sort of an impact instrument that has come out of Bangladesh, being a pioneer of that. And of course, there are a lot of new forms of impact investment instruments, including venture capital, impact venture capital. And I represent Startup Bangladesh, and we're a government-funded VC, government's only venture capital organization, which is quite unheard of in many countries because you have a government making equity investment in startups, right? And of the investments that we have made, I guess almost 95% of the startups can be considered impact startups, right? Imagine, I know we heard about unicorns earlier. I mean, imagine investing in impact in education where you have a unicorn. So we are not only investing in impact, but we're also making a lot of money out of it, and which is what we're talking about, right? But then, of course, one of the panelists talked about child marriage, for example, right? And that's an area where you may not have enough returns on investment, but there's definitely room for a lot of social impact, right? But this is where we don't see enough capital coming in. We don't see private sector capital coming in, and of course there can be other instruments that will develop out of that because there's a need, there's a requirement for that. And now we have artificial intelligence coming in, AI making it much easier to actually implement and make these things much faster, right? So to the panelists, I'll first come to Laura, and I just as a continuation of what you were talking about, social impact bonds and outcome-based financing. You talked about starting in 2010 in UK. Can you give us some examples of countries where they have been successfully implemented and some more examples on that?
Yeah, definitely. Is my microphone? Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I think there are a lot of different successful examples around the world. I'll mention another example from India because I think it's helpful to have examples from the region. Another example is an impact bond focusing on improving the quality of healthcare provided to young mothers and to premature born babies. And in this impact bond, they call it impact bond, they focus on improving the quality of healthcare provided at maternal wards in 400 healthcare facilities in India, with the outcome payment being made if those facilities meet the standards for government accreditation. which means that when they meet that accreditation, they can also access different forms of government support in the future. So in this program, they were able to improve the quality of multiple hundreds of these healthcare facilities, which lead to reduced death and illness in the facilities. So it helped to improve the quality of healthcare across the healthcare sector in this instance. And the difference with this program is that, or with this way of funding, is that it allowed the facilities to get financial support over multiple years, but also really focus on that accreditation and that quality rather than the number of staff or the number of patients that they see, but really focus on the quality improvement. So really changing from an output focus to this impact or outcome focus.
So just a follow-up question to you. Who are usually the stakeholders in outcome-based funding? Because we know we have a outcome funder or an impact funder, but who are the other stakeholders?
So the categories of stakeholders are outcome funder, impact investor, and implementer. But who takes on each role can differ a lot depending on the local need, the local context. So in terms of outcome funders, it's often a combination of, say, development funders or aid funders, as well as government, because the challenges that they're solving are within the public domain. But it can also be the private sector. In Nigeria, there was an impact bond focused on reducing plastic waste and creating livelihood opportunities through a social entrepreneur, with Unilever Nigeria as the outcome funder, and a European-based investor as the investor. And also on the investor side, it can be philanthropic impact investors or private impact investors.
Now, that's a great example of private-public partnership and outcome-based financing. So next I'll come to, as a continuation of the same topic, and I'll come to Shardar Zaman of UNDP. And I know we have many projects with UNDP, right? Have you integrated outcome-based financing in your projects, or what is the plan for UNDP going forward? Do you see that? Do you see that private sector coming in with development partners and government to finance projects such as this?
Well, thank you, Sami Bhai, for asking this question, as this is very much relevant at this moment, particularly as we have heard from the previous discussion in the country while we are having an emerging economy. At the moment, in UNDP, we have been working with the government on various aspects, and particularly on the financial and connecting with the development issues. Like we have several interventions ongoing, but not necessarily exactly with the private sector engagement, but we are doing a kind of testing, I can say, which is not only talking about like physical improvement or changing it, but rather talking about like how we can engage community in terms of their empowerment and in terms of their leadership and taking part in the decision-making process. For example, I can tell like we have a large program with the government, particularly with the different city corporations and the municipalities, while we are supporting the community, and particularly the urban poor community, which we typically call slum dwellers. And there we are engaging those community people for their own livelihood improvement in a way like we have a small scale like settlement improvement fund, and that helps them to improve their living condition in terms of developing very small scale road, street, drainage and footpath, so that they can have their improved living conditions. And in doing so, what we are doing, like we are engaging the community people in terms of their privatization, planning and also implementing, I mean, through a social contracting. We are building their capacity in terms of the mentorship and in terms of like they are not really hiring external contractor, but they themselves are doing it. So it has a limitations that it should be like a 6 to 7 lakh taka. But in terms of the connecting with the climate change issue, we have climate resilience municipality infrastructure fund, and that also again is planned and built by themselves together with the city government. I mean, here the fund is coming with the project and as well as from the city corporation's contribution, and those are very much linked with the climate change impact and the addressing the climate change impact in that community, so that they are not really left behind, rather they are included as a living node behind principles taking into consideration in terms of their condition improvement, And in those areas, we are also engaging them for their entire construction and construction all together. And last point I want to make, we have also a couple of other modes in the CSDF, Community Housing Development Fund, we call it. This CSDF is very unique in our country so far, is that it's a community-based housing finance program. Here, what we have done, like, we have given a seed fund, to the community, and community is also putting their own money in there, and now they are taking it as a loan, with interest-free loan, but they have, because since it's a loan, they have to repay, but since they are also putting their own money, and the entire money that we have given as a kind of seed money is being managed and monitored by themselves. So what point I want to make is like, here we are not only one way delivering the intervention to them, but for making sure that they are engaged, they are owning it, and also the O&M, operations and maintenance part is also handed over to them so that they can think about how they can make it sustainably feasible in coming days. If I may, will I get another round of opportunity? Sorry?
Sure, you can continue.
Okay. On other perspective, the macro level policy interventions, I just want to also share, like, apart from the policy project-wise engagement, UNDP is also now in partnering with Bangladesh Security Exchange and Commissions. I see Samsudin Bhai is here. While in this partnership, what we are trying to do is working with BISEC for developing impact investment taxonomy, so that it can really give a kind of framework for any potential investor, impact investor in coming days, that they can really see and can be guided by that taxonomy. And following that taxonomy, we feel that, and we intend, together with the BISEC, we want to develop a SDG bond framework. We know in our country we have several bonds already issued and also owned by, initiated by different non-government organizations, and it has also a success story in terms of mobilizing money. But then the issue comes is the impact measurement and monitoring, which is also being discussed in the previous panel, I recall. And on that point, we have also a plan to work together with the BISEC for developing that impact measurement and monitoring framework, so that in coming days we can make sure that how much this impact investment is really contributing to the particular and specified impact at the end of the day. And UNDP, we have globally several success stories on that impact measurement, monitoring and framework designing and helping the government, but we feel that it is very important to customize. And in that regard, we are closely working with BISEC at the policy level for developing that framework, and we understand and we are totally convinced that it will really leverage in the future potential impact investment in coming days. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you for sharing with us what UNDP is planning with BISEC and Bangladesh government and different projects that are coming up, right? And you've been working with Bangladesh for many years. UNDP has been here from the development partner side. But one new trend that we see, normally it's government or development partners, or some organizations like BRAC, we see coming in and supporting into impact, solving these problems that we have in society. But we see a large amount of startups coming in now, right? Startups coming in, solving problems in education, health, different sectors, right? So for my next speaker, I'll go to Kerry Green, who we work in a similar industry, venture capital and private equity. How do you see the role of VC and PE playing a role in these impact instruments that we have and supporting all the startups?
Yeah, thank you, Sami. Really interesting question. And first, I would like to thank NAB. This is my first time being involved directly in one of your events, and I'm finding it very thought-provoking and engaging for me. As Sami said, I work in private equity here in Bangladesh. I've been here for quite some time, and I just want to provide a little bit of background so you know where my comments are coming from. I work for Bremer & Partners. We're a Swedish asset management company who's had 2 private equity funds fully focused on Bangladesh, each of about $100 million. We're investors in about 10 large enterprises here in Bangladesh. And when I look at the role of private equity here, because of where Bangladesh is in its development cycle, even the provision of straightforward equity drives significant development outcomes. So just to mention a few of our investments, we're investors in Fiber at Home, which is one of 2 companies helping to build the nationwide fiber optic communication network for Bangladesh, a critical partner in the Digital Bangladesh Initiative, which has now become the Smart Bangladesh Initiative. So bringing internet connectivity to the remote areas, the local levels of Bangladesh. We were investors in Popular Pharmaceuticals. Popular was able to build a presence in an already established pharmaceutical market in Bangladesh by targeting import substitution. So Popular, for example, was the first company to manufacture insulin locally. We were also investors in Runner Automobiles. So Runner, when it was created, it was the first company to manufacture motorcycles in Bangladesh. So bringing light engineering jobs, but also filling a need in the market for a lightweight, low-cost motorcycle. It had at the time that we invested the most popular motorcycle in Bangladesh, which was an 80cc bike, which really didn't exist, easily importable from other markets, but Bangladesh is flat. People wanted an inexpensive transport solution that suited them. So at that point in time, that was the right transport solution. So these are examples, like you're saying, of these were all startups at one point in time, and they needed capital to grow. And there needs to be more provision of just straightforward equity in this market for companies of that size and a little bit smaller, because there's a whole range of SMEs out there that have great solutions. I work with recyclers, healthcare companies, and others who are looking for that capital. They have enough debt, they need some equity, and it's hard to find the right funds for that. So I wanted to mention that. And secondly, I think that also we're what FI might consider ESG investors, because our investors include a lot of development finance institutions such as the IFC. So while we have private institutional investors from particularly Europe, where our parent company is based, IFC, FMO, DEG, Norfund, BII, they're all investors in our fund, and because of that, we have a commitment to them and to our companies that we implement the IFC performance standards. So for all of our transactions, we do a review of the companies to see how they're performing in terms of environmental stewardship, where they might need to take corrective actions. We have action plans of things they will do after we invest, and we have commitments from them to implement environmental and social management systems, which means on an ongoing basis, they review the risks and opportunities related to environmental performance, social performance, which is how they treat their people, how they comply with labor laws, how they work with their communities and the environments that they operate in, and also governance, anti-bribery, anti-corruption, integrity. Those are all areas that our fund works on. And I think it's interesting, or I find it interesting, because we're not an impact fund per se. We're a commercial private equity fund, but our investors have made agreements with us, and we live by those agreements. And just related to the theme of today's panel and outcome-based financing, I think there is an interesting space for kind of evolving the incentive structures for fund managers like ourselves. And one very interesting, and I found it innovative, although it's very simple, element that I came across when we were fundraising for a new fund. There was a potential investor who was interested in investing in a fund, but they had a particular interest in gender lens investing. And they had a commitment to the 2X program. And the 2X program is trying to facilitate more investment in businesses that are founded by, owned by, have majority female workers and or focus on female consumers. And the reason that program is important is less than 10% of venture capital funding a year goes to female-founded businesses, and there's huge biases in the way we allocate funds globally. So they wanted to know, could we think about including gender lens investing in our investment approach, which we were very open to. But what's interesting is, how do you quantify that? When it comes to actually allocating capital, how do you move the needle when you have those discussions with your investment committee? And it's nice to have, but is it going to make us say yes to a certain company just because we've agreed to consider it? So what they suggested, which was really putting their money where their mouth was, that is, if we had more than 50% of our portfolio invested in companies that qualified for 2X criteria, they would give us 2% extra carry. So this was a very outcome-based example of kind of working with the fund manager. So I think there's a lot that can be done in that way, both on the side of evolving the instruments, but also looking at the traditional incentive structures for fund managers like ourselves, and thinking about how you can incentivize us to invest in alignment with your outcome objectives.
Great example, Kerry. Really applaud your investors for bringing in that, that process with you and be able to support the fund manager, and we also implement that in the Bangladesh market. So we'll come to Mr. Adisur Rahman now, the Senior Director from BRAD. And we talked about microfinance being one of them. You're a pioneer, BRAC has been a pioneer of microfinance in Bangladesh. Right, that has been an instrument of impact investment in the past 30, 40, 50 years, right? But now there are many new tools that are coming up, and what's BRAC thinking, what's BRAC doing? I know you have operations in different countries, and this is what you do. Impact investment, basically what you do.
Yeah. So I think microfinance is one of the major intervention BRAC runs when it comes to financial inclusions of the rural population into the socio-economic system. Other than microfinance, we have a lot of other social enterprises which are classic examples of impact investment. So if you may allow, I will be able to talk more on that because that gives more opportunity for the investors to come in and the entrepreneur like the tools are connected with that. So social enterprises are predominantly commercial entities that runs like a commercial entity. There's a for-profit. The difference between normal commercial organization and BRAC social enterprises are its objectives and deliverables. To qualify any enterprises that we run as a social enterprise, we need to pass certain tests. And I can instantly say three of them. The first one is the solution. Then is it going to provide solution to existing or future challenges, problems that are in the socio-economic system? It could be any type of problems or challenges. So it should be a solution based, number one. Number two, it should be sustainable and locally solution. I cannot just bring in some from abroad and put it there. It is not imported solution, local solution. It should be sustainable and it should be scalable. I cannot be just in a small area or small community. It should be scalable throughout the country. So this is number one. The number two is impact. Like even if I'm bringing the solution, what are the impacts it is having in the socio-economic field or the field where it is operating? So we measure this impact and also we report and publish this. So this is number two. Number three is it upskilling the capability of the people or the system where we operate? Because ultimate objective is to create livelihood and productivity. Like through our intervention and training and hand-holding, like we want that people who are connected with this enterprises or system should be upskilling their capabilities, their productivity should improve, and their income should improve so that they can have a better living. So after passing all this, we do the social enterprises. Now moving forward, right, we have existing 11 social enterprises. We are looking to expand some of the social enterprises beyond the boundary of the country. And also we are thinking of few of the new social enterprises to come in. For example, Aram is one of the top lifestyle brand in Bangladesh. And it's a heritage brand, our own brand. So we are now thinking to take this Aram as a heritage brand, not only for Bangladesh, for globally. So we want to take this beyond Bangladesh. Now, on the agricultural front, we have many interventions that we are thinking of bringing for the futuristic outlook into the system, like smart agriculture, like green agriculture, like sustainable agriculture, like climate smart agriculture. So these are the few of the things that we are already working on, and we will look forward to investment partner, not only the financial investment, like the knowledge partners, like technology partners to come in and join hands with us. At the same time, we are working on the renewables and climate adaptive solutions. One of the major issues that we are looking at is saline aquaculture, like on the southern belt of the country. So we have a lot of ideas that we are working on, and we'll be looking forward to take some of this forward. The immediate that we are working on the urban waste management and recycling. So that's a major item that is coming forward for us. So we'll be looking forward investors, knowledge partners, technology partners to come and join hands with us so that we can strengthen our efforts and take this initiatives forward. Thank you.
Thank you. So I understand that BRAC is creating social enterprises and through which you are solving some of these problems in society, right? And creating employment, serving the country. But just a quick follow-up question. You saw a couple of entrepreneurs talking about plastic and plastic waste. Does BRAC also support entrepreneurs like that? How can they connect with your system, with your social enterprise?
Both of them, yeah. The first of all, the FOMEX. Yeah. I would be very much interested to get connected with them because I'm working for last 2 years on biodegradable packaging. So far, I could not, other than a solution for ready-made garments, because for the food, for the pharmaceutical, it is not possible. As yet, it's not feasible in our country because of the nature of the packaging that we need. But for the garments wrapping, it's possible. If they have solution for food and pharmaceuticals and also agricultural inputs, I'm very much interested to join hands with them. On the plastic side, everybody is looking at hard plastics, yeah, but nobody is looking at soft plastic, like flexible packaging, flexible plastics, and laminated plastics. These two are damaging our land. It is going for the landfilling and also our water. So I would be very much interested to the Plastile team also, if they have any solutions on laminated plastic. I will be very much interested to work with them.
Thank you. So it's great news for FOMEX and Plastile, both of them, right? So you guys can connect after this session and maybe talk more about it. So we'll come to our last panelist. Last but not least, we'll come to Sharat Islam from True Value Bangladesh. So would you share with us your experience in Bangladesh around these impact investment instruments that you have seen, and what's working and what's not?
Thank you so much, Sami Bhai. Before I begin, let me introduce myself briefly. I am Sharat Islam. True Value is an impact investment company. We are based in the Netherlands, and we have offices in Kenya, Uganda, Colombia, Bangladesh, Peru. Our main goal is we work like any other private equity companies, but with the goal of creating an impact. So if I talk about my experience, we have been working in Bangladesh since 2017, so it's been 6 years. Talking about instruments, in Bangladesh, we mostly do straightforward private equity, like any other private equity firm. So the difference between traditional private equity firm is that we also, apart from risk return analysis, we also do an impact analysis. Much of what my predecessor Kelly Breen has already covered, that like every private equity investor, they do a risk return analysis, right? But at the beginning of due diligence, we also do an impact analysis. We usually follow the IRIS framework, IRIS Plus framework, and we also connect impact to the SDGs. So we do a complete impact analysis to understand that how much impact this business is currently generating, what is the baseline, and how much impact this business will generate after our investment, if we invest. So just like we calculate that how much return we'll be getting, we calculate that, okay, how much, say for example, how many smallholder farmers will this investment bring into the value chain? Or how many jobs will be created for women if we invest in this company? How much women empowerment will be there? Like if we invest, will there be additional women in the board of these companies? So far, we mostly focused on agriculture and climate, but we are also now from going forward this year, we'll be focusing on gender as well. So SDG 5 we have included in our impact criteria. And I'll be very happy if the Securities and Exchange Commission really comes up with a complete guideline for impact investors. Because in Bangladesh so far we have done mostly plain equity. I mean equity in the form of either quasi-equity or preference share or common equity. But in other countries, True Value also does convertible notes or revenue sharing. So different types of investments in instruments we use. And I think there are enough companies, startups, enterprises in Bangladesh that they need different types of instruments. Now we cannot finance many companies because we cannot use those instruments or design those instruments. And just let me announce that we'll be launching a green fund next year, end of next year or beginning of 2025. We have already started working on it, and we'd be delighted if we can use more instrument than just equity, quasi-equity or equity. So yes, I'm looking forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, that's great. Revenue sharing. We talk about revenue sharing and convertibles. Yes, these are definitely instruments that we need. And I know ACC over here, Sheikh Shamsuddin Bhai, he's the most private sector friendly, open-minded ACC commissioner I have met, and we've been working together. And I think these solutions we'll probably see in Bangladesh in the near future. And as a follow-up to that, quick round of questions to all the panelists. We take 1 minute of time, and I will start with you. Is that what is it? So you have the National Advisory Board for Impact Investment here, right? We have a lot of people from government, private sector, development partners. What would your suggestion to them be in one? If we were to focus on one instrument, what is your instrument of choice that you'd suggest us that we could focus on in terms of policy or whatever that's required to implement that in Bangladesh? Where we should focus on more?
Now I think in Bangladesh everyone is doing equity, so debt instruments. I'll focus more on debt instruments.
And why is that? Why is that?
The reason is that now for every single debt that we want in whichever form it is, so an approval from Bangladesh Investment Development Authority is required. For equity, we can first bring in the equity and then notify Bangladesh Bank within 14 days of share issuance. So it's easier for us to do equity. But for debt, even if it's a 10,000 euro debt, we need separate approval. So that's why we are not bringing debt. But if debt is allowed, we can do different forms like bonds, even crowdfunding. We have a partner company in the Netherlands, we do crowdfunding. So different instruments would be easier, bonds.
Right. Thank you so much. And I'll come to Mr. Ansunaman.
Yeah. So for me, other than healthcare and fuel, so we are only exposed to debt financing. Yeah. So equity, BRAC is not considering as yet, but we are open for discussion in future, even including public-private partnership. Can I share one of my challenges? I think it's felt across, but nobody is brave enough to share. Like, the single most challenge in the system to run an ethical business, because to run an ethical business is costly in Bangladesh and it makes the business non-competitive. So I would request the regulators and facilitators, if you can give us some waiver that those who are doing this impact investing and doing ethical business should be given some waiver or relief in any form, because otherwise we become incompetitive.
Thank you. Welcome to Shadar Asaduzzahman.
Well, on this very specific question, I would prefer from UNDP side, since our working modality is a little bit different from many others, so we cannot really go for an issuing bond or working like with that. Rather, our different country context, we have experience on particularly on impact measurement and monitoring, and that is very important, we feel. And from my side, I feel like that is critically important for making sure that that investment is really very meticulously measured and monitored, so that we can really eventually encourage further investment of that. That's all. If I take another one minute or so, like I see this type of gathering is very important for making a connection, as we can already see, like BRAC is potentially being connected with the two startup, and Sami Bhai, like UNDP also encourages a number of startups initiatives on two different hackathons, not only in social issues, but also like on environmental and climate issues, and as well as like ICT-based different balancing instrument on ICT platform. So I think these type of startups can also be connected, and maybe we can request NAP to really have a kind of opening space for those startups to share their potentiality and how they can be connected for scaling up in creating more impact in the society and various aspects. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary?
Thank you. I think I second all the comments about debt, by the way, and I think it would be great if NAB could help with maybe a brainstorming and innovation around an instrument that would be well suited to these SMEs. And by SME, I mean maybe companies with USD $5 to $10 million annual turnover. they're kind of too big and maybe and too established an industry to be VC funded. Maybe they require infrastructure, other things that mean that they're not going to get venture capital investment, but they really want equity. And it's been hard globally to have funds that really have proven SMEs as a good investment focus for their whole investment thesis for their whole fund. So is there a hybrid, debt equity model, something that, with the particular interests of this market in mind, could be, involved and tested with a few companies here to fill that gap? That would be really interesting.
And Laura?
Thanks. You probably expect me to say social impact bonds, but I was thinking, just hearing the other panelists talk about social impact entrepreneurship, and for a lot of startups not yet really being investable for equity investment. I think you can combine the sort of outcomes-based focus, having an outcomes-based payment top-up, for example, for social enterprises, is the case in the success note. That takes the risk a bit lower for the investor, and it could bring in development funding, government funding to pay for those outcomes. So you can really create a partnership, and each stakeholder can take their role in helping that impact entrepreneur grow their business and their impact. So that's what I would recommend.
No, thank you so much. Do we have any time for an audience question? Oh, we do have. So any questions from the audience? We see this lady. Please introduce yourself and ask your question.
Hi, I'm Sergina. I'm an entrepreneur based between London and Dhaka, and I'm particularly intrigued by something Mr. Sardar Asaduzzaman had to share about a particular type of impact investment instrument. Forgive me for using layman terminology here. I'm not a finance expert by any means. Sir, you mentioned that you are providing a type of seed loan that is a contribution to entrepreneurs, which they can avail interest-free, which I think is fantastic, and they can do that because they themselves are contributing financially as well, which makes them have skin in the game. You also mentioned that the entrepreneurs themselves are in charge of managing and delegating the financial support that they've received. So what I'm curious about is, how does the lending organization ensure that impact measurement is being done and impact is actually being achieved if the entrepreneur themselves are in charge of steering the ship of the financial aid that they've received?
Great. Now, that's a fantastic question. We'll take one more question before we come back to the panelists. So the gentleman back there, just a quick question.
Thank you so much. This is Saiful Islam, communication executive from P-Cycle. P-Cycle is a youth-led organization. My question is to Asaduzzaman Bhai. Actually, you talked about the girls' education and talked about the slum dwellers. And there are so many organizations, even UNIP is working also with the slum dwellers about their water, sanitation and hygiene and their health. But there are very less organizations, those who are working about their education. Specifically, if you want to focus about the girls' education in the slum area, there are so many girls, those who are not getting even the primary education and their higher secondary education as well. So what steps you are taking, and what step if we would like to take as a representative of a private organization, so what step we can take and how much fund or how much invest where we can get from you? Thank you.
Okay, and one final question before we come back to the panelists. The gentleman over there on the right.
Hello, I'm Mahim from PwC Bangladesh. So my question will be particularly related to the equity investments that are made in the startups or impact ventures. So I understand that in one of the previous sessions we were talking about sustainable impact, right? So what I wanted to understand is, I wanted to ask the question to the investors over here, and also Sami Bhai is also an investor as a venture capital leader. So what I wanted to understand is, how do you ensure that you exit from a particular investment so that the sustainability of the impact is ensured? What are the criteria, or how do you determine that this is the right time to exit this particular investment, keeping in mind the sustainability factor?
Yeah, excellent question. So one final, and that's it. We'll come back to the panel. People are excited to ask questions. So
thank you, Sami Bhai, for the exception for me. So my question is for Laura, Kerry, and and Ms. Sharawat. Due to the current political turmoil and the uncertainty in the next 6 months, how do you see the macroeconomic situation impacting the investment flow? Just to give a context to the question, a recent study done by, I believe, Light Castle mentions that the investments in the very recent third quarter saw a significant 77% decline compared to the same period last year. So uncertainty, turmoil is always the white elephant in any context in Bangladesh. Very few people address it directly, so I would like to hear your point of views on this, please. Thank you.
Great. Now, thank you for the questions. We'll come back to the panelists. It looks like Asupai, you're very popular, so we'll start off with you, and then the panelists may choose to answer as you please.
Okay, thank you very much for asking the question, particularly focusing on the first one. The whole arrangement in the community development housing fund is that community housing development fund, CSDF. The whole arrangement is there is a governance structure, and the governance structure is like this CSDF. We have helped them to get a kind of individually registered with the government. And their that governance structure like has a funding management arrangement, and that makes sure that whatever money is really following to any individual level, and that is properly utilized, and then it's paid back. So the thing is, seed money we have given, but their contribution is there. So since it is a group of people created cooperatives, so they have a mutual accountability within themselves, so that they, at the end of the day, they can make sure that this seed money is rolling out and it can help one after another gradually. So this is one thing. If I don't know whether I responded to properly, otherwise you can have one-to-one talk. And the other colleagues talked about like girls' education. Yes, on that interventions we have one activities is that education grant for the girls, particularly girls. Because our entire initiative with the urban poor community is focusing on the women and the girls, including like addressing violence against women. For the girls' education, we have education grant specifically, and we have also a set guideline, and this education grant actually reaches to their through their mobile banking. So financial inclusion through their mother particularly. So the money is channeling to that particular girl for their education. And also, as I said, violence against women and preventing early child marriage is also included in the whole package. But the point and challenge is still there. As I said, that is an evolving idea. How to really make sure that the impact is measured and monitored is a critical area. That I cannot respond to you at the moment very clearly how we are doing it, but it's also evolving, and we are also developing, like creating to develop that framework eventually. So thank you.
No, thank you. Kerry or Sharada, you want to address the next question? Do you want to do the exit?
Sure, yeah. And I think, I'm not sure if I understood your question correctly, but whether or not the sustainability aspects of the business would continue after the exit is the question? Yeah. I think the way we view it is our goal when we're working with our portfolio companies is to have sustainability embedded in the business. So it's not a separate concern that could just be flipped off at the end of the day. It's something that there's commitment from the top right through the organization. And they see it as a part of their value proposition, to be good stewards, to have good treatment of their workforce, which then in turn has all these business benefits. I'm sure I don't need to go into that with all of you, but satisfied employees, well-treated employees, or more productive employees, you have lower turnover, et cetera, et cetera. Environmental opportunities are there as well as compliance factors. So that's our hope. We don't necessarily select exit opportunities on the basis of are you committed or not to sustainability, but we see it as part and parcel of the value of the business that's been created over the years.
Plus, from the VC point of view, the exit just doesn't happen when the VC wants to exit. It depends on if you have another VC, probably someone who has more money than us, come in.
Yeah, timing is always exactly.
And the other part is you go to IPO, and I know we're working closely with BSEC to see how we can bring startups in Bangladesh to IPO. So in that case, sustainability is sustained, in that particular way. Any other questions you want to address? I think there was one question about the next 6 months, how we see it and how do we recover from that.
Economic ups and downs are part of any country, any economy. So, and equity investors, count that risk, factor in that risk. So it doesn't mean that we'll stop investing in Bangladesh or any other investor will stop investing in Bangladesh. We are impact investors, and the need for impact will always be there. Right? So, and it's the people, it's the businesses that they need these investments to create impact. So yes, maybe the investment that was supposed to come in December, maybe we delayed a bit or something, but that doesn't mean that our business, we will stop doing impact investments in Bangladesh. So we will continue as usual. This is business as usual for us.
I'll just add to that, especially venture capital investors are really betting on the fundamentals of the market, the large population, the young population, the rise of the economy in their horizon is long. And private equity investors also have a 5 to 7 year investment horizon. So, however, the immediate crisis is relevant and the currency depreciation is very relevant. So with the uncertainty about where the currency is going, I think we'll see a lot of delay in investment until, I don't know, the middle of next year. When, unfortunately, if you're a foreign investor and you're going to convert your exit proceeds back into your home currency, any kind of depreciation between your investment and your exit comes right off your return. So, I think that the funding for deals will be delayed, but the long-term prospects for the economy are still quite strong.
Yeah, no, very good point. I mean, there are ups and downs, right? And but Bangladesh ecosystem has been very resilient. I mean, in the last, with all the global financial crisis in the last 1 or 2 years, I've seen maybe a few startups shut down, not too many, right? And Bangladesh startups have even raised funds during this period. So we have a very resilient ecosystem, and I think we'll come over it. We'll get over it very soon. So we are at the end of our session. Time's up. But thank you very much. Thank you to the panelists. How about a round of applause? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Samir Bhai. Talk about an outcome-based panel. We had our young entrepreneurs being connected to funders, and we know exactly what instrument Bangladesh needs at this point of time, and I have seen Dr. Shamsuddin sir listening very keenly. Sir, from what I heard, we need debt instruments, convertible notes, and what was it? The revenue sharing, or what Samir Bhai mentioned, together with Laura, the PPP model of the bond. It is over to you now, sir, to make this. We hope that we will see this in the next year. Now, may I request the panelists just to bear with us for 1 minute, and may I invite Mr. Suresh Bartlett to the dais to give you a small token so that you remember us next year and the years after. Thank you. Mr. Bartlett, Mr. Sami Ahmed, CEO of Startup Bangladesh. Ms. Laura Brower, she's been with us for quite a while on the dais. Thank you, Laura. Ms. Carrie Green from Brower and Partner. Mr. Sardar M. Asaduzaman from UNDP, Bangladesh. Mr. Anis Rahman, Senior Director from BRAC. And Ms. Sarwat Islam, Managing Director, True Wealth Bangladesh. Ms. Bartlett, can we also have a group photo, please? Thank you very much.
Okay, sir, camera please. Smiling, sir.